This moment in time in our economy, as it is structured at this moment, and the way things move at this moment, is the best possible time to be alive in the history of the human race.
Dave Ramsey argues that right now, this moment is the single greatest opportunity in human history to build wealth. I'm going to break down his core strategies on the economy, real estate, and the mindset that separates the millionaires from the masses, and explain why these principles are the absolute bedrock of financial freedom. First, let's get right to his take on why there has never been a better time to be alive if your goal is to build something significant.
I truly believe this, and I think I've got good basis for the belief that today in the United States of America at this moment, with all the political hoopla, this moment in time in our economy, as it is structured at this moment, and the way things move at this moment, is the best possible time to be alive in the history of the human race. If you want to build wealth, if you want to become somebody, if you want to go do something. I've got so many Gen Zs on this team, and the thing I have learned about the Gen Zs and millennials is that they've grown up with this thing in their hand that answers any question that they want answered instantaneously. They've got information of the entire world in their palm. They can push a button and stuff shows up on your front porch in a few hours. It's the weirdest thing. It's like having a magic wand. And what that has done for those of you that have this native, that you've had this your entire, adult lives or semi-adult lives, you've had this at your access. You can stop, you can get an app to do anything, is you have a built-in, if you let it function, a built-in abundance mentality. Because this thing says anything's possible. Bing! Because anything's possible. That's an abundance mentality. And if you will tap into that instead of believing these horrible philosophies that are floating around about, the economy's systemically flawed and you're screwed. And boomers bought their houses with a basket of strawberries and now you can't buy. If you don't quit believing all that crap and instead go, God, anything's possible. Go do something.
The core principle here is not about technology. It's about the death of gatekeepers. Ramsey is pointing out that the barriers to entry for creating value have been obliterated. You can launch a global business with near zero capital. This isn't just an opportunity, it's a fundamental shift in the wealth creation model. What I think gets missed is that this access to tools creates an abundance mindset, but only if you choose to adopt it. The prevailing narrative is one of scarcity and systemic barriers. The strategic move is to reject that narrative completely. Wealth builders don't see limits, they see leverage. Technology and information are the great equalizers, allowing anyone to compete if they have the will. This long-term, optimistic view is critical, not just for starting a business, but for making the single biggest financial decision for most people, buying a home.
It might be the case for a year, or it might be the case for 2 years. I don't know. I got my real estate license in 1978. We've had that discussion before. So I've watched this a long, long time. And the thing I know is if I'm talking to a 40-year-old and they never buy a house, the 80-year-old version of them is going to be really pissed. Because their cost of housing over that 40 years, 100% chance it's going up. 100%
But what if they're diligently investing? Because you've seen these statistics before where if you had put your down payment in the S&P at the same time as buying a house, the S&P investment would have outpaced it by double. And that was from the 80s through today.
Except that the largest line item in your personal income budget for the typical American is housing.
Mm-hmm.
And when you buy a home and then you pay it off, it's no longer your largest line item in your personal budget, and you can do investing. And so you flip the cash flow towards investing at that point.
This is a classic conflict between two wealth-building models, the short-term financial optimizer versus the long-term system builder. Graham Stephan's point about renting being cheaper right now is mathematically correct, but Ramsey's point is a far more powerful wealth principle. He's not talking about a 2-year ROI calculation. He's talking about a 40-year strategy to eliminate your single largest expense forever. Paying off a house isn't just an investment. It's a move to permanently alter your personal cash flow statement. Once that mortgage is gone, you've built a powerful economic engine. The money that was going to a landlord or a bank is now freed up to aggressively acquire other assets. It's a behavioral strategy that guarantees a lower cost of living in the future, which is a cornerstone of lasting wealth. This move is a key milestone on the way to a much larger goal, what Ramsey calls the pinnacle point of wealth.
Definitely. I don't know that it's a certain tier, but when you reach the point, I always call it the pinnacle point, where you pedal and pedal and pedal and pedal and pedal to get to the top of the hill, and finally you're there, and you're in Tennessee. And that means you can go down the hill. And what that is mathematically for me, and I've taught people this, and I've had a lot of positive affirmation that this is accurate. When you get enough money that your money makes more than you make, that's an interesting point. When your investments generate more dollars than you generate, meaning that if you didn't work, you'd be more than fine, right? When you get let's say you get $2 million and you've got it in mutual funds, and you say, okay, I could pull 150 off of that a year and not touch it. It'd still grow, and I'd be just fine. And you've been living on 100, and you've been making 100, and you get to that point. Well, that's an emotional point in the person's life.
This is the single most important definition in the entire wealth creation journey. The pinnacle point is the moment you transition from being the engine to owning the engine. It's the crossover from actively trading your time and effort for income to passively receiving income from the assets you've acquired. This is the mathematical definition of financial freedom. Most people think of wealth in terms of a net worth number, but that's a vanity metric. The real metric is passive income relative to your expenses. Reaching the pinnacle point is a psychological shift. It means your financial security is no longer tied to your ability to show up to a job. Every strategic decision you make should be designed to get you to this point faster. But reaching it is almost impossible to do alone. In fact, Ramsey points to one factor that is causal, not just correlated to success: your partner.
When we started this business, I had just gone broke a couple years before. We had nothing. I made $130,000 flipping real estate the year I started this. And it was 3 years after I'd gone bankrupt. And I really wasn't flipping it. I was just tying it up and selling the position, selling the contracts. And I did the numbers, and I said, Sharon, we sat down and looked at it, and she said, this stuff that you're teaching at church, this financial peace stuff, this is really helping people. And we need to talk about it. Okay, so we're praying about it. I'm like, okay, I think God is telling us to go just do that and not do real estate anymore. But if we do, the best I can figure, selling a few books and a few speeches and having a little class, I might make $62,000. Here's the numbers. Here's how I get there, which is half of what I made the year before. I got little babies and a wife who's just gone through a bankruptcy. And we're looking at this, and I said, do you think we ought to do that? And she said, I think we're supposed to do that.
The strategic principle here is that your spouse is your co-founder in the business of your life. Getting alignment on the long-term vision, and more importantly, the short-term sacrifice required to get there, is not a soft skill. It is a non-negotiable strategic asset. Ramsey taking a 50% pay cut to pursue his vision would have been impossible without his wife's buy-in. It would have created friction and resentment that would have killed the venture. We need to reframe this. This isn't just about support. It's about unified strategy. When you and your partner are aligned, you can direct 100% of your energy toward the goal. When you're not, you're fighting a two-front war, one against the market and one at home. That internal friction is what drains the energy needed to win. This kind of alignment requires immense belief in yourself and the system, which is the biggest hurdle for most people who fail.
But her biggest problem is like a buddy of mine who grew up in a really low income area. He said, getting out of the hood is not as hard as getting the hood out of your head. So her biggest problem is overcoming her mindset and believing and having hope again and seeing a system that she could use from you guys or me that she could use to actually go and, okay, I can go get this job, and then I could do that, and then I could take this class, and then I could do this, and I have a career path, and then I could start saving and investing. And Mathematically, can someone starting from nothing and no reputation that's a convicted felon become prosperous over 30 years in America? Absolutely. But they got to believe they can, and they got to see the system and have access and that. But if you don't, if you can't get out of your own head, then no, you ain't got a chance.
This is the foundation. The phrase, getting the hood out of your head, is a powerful metaphor for shedding a victim mentality. The core principle is that your internal narrative dictates your external reality. Wealth creation is an inside game before it's an outside one. All the financial strategies, investment vehicles, and business tactics are useless if you don't fundamentally believe you are capable of executing them successfully. Hope, as Ramsey puts it, is not a feeling, it's a strategy. It's the belief that cause and effect are real, that if you take the right actions, you will get the right results. People who fail are often trapped by the belief that the system is rigged against them. People who succeed operate as if the system is a game they can learn to win. Even with this personal mindset, many people get paralyzed by the big picture, especially the national debt. Here's Ramsey's surprising take on why that shouldn't stop you.
I hate debt, and I don't like that we're doing this, but a long time ago, it was supposed to have collapsed everything, and it hasn't, which I don't understand. It baffles me. So one of my good friends is a guy named Art Laffer. Art moved to Tennessee from California many years ago, and he's the father of supply-side economics. He started Reaganomics. He was on Ronald Reagan's cabinet, and he's brilliant. He's got a PhD in economics from Cambridge. Okay, he's old money guy. He's in his 80s, and he's just a wonderful guy. And he and I got in a big argument riding together on a plane about this. I'm like, Art, come on, explain to me. And he tried to explain it to me why it's okay, because it doesn't bother him a bit. And he's Mr. Economics, right? And I'm like, and I couldn't understand why he doesn't. I still don't understand why it's not there. But I quit worrying about it is the summary of the story. I really don't understand why it has not done more damage already.
The strategic takeaway here is simple but profound. Focus on what you can control. Ramsey, a man who built his entire brand on hating debt, admits that the national debt operates on a level he doesn't fully understand and has stopped letting it occupy his mind. This is a critical lesson for any entrepreneur or investor. Your energy and attention are your most valuable assets. Wasting them on macroeconomic problems you cannot influence is a low ROI activity. The winning strategy is not to predict the storm, but to build a personal financial arc that is so strong it can withstand any storm. Focus on your personal balance sheet, your income, your assets, and your debt. Build a personal economy so robust that what happens in the broader economy becomes less and less relevant to your success. So the real question isn't about what the government will do next, it's about what you will do. The single biggest obstacle to your wealth is the story you tell yourself about your role in the economy. So, what's one belief you need to get rid of this week to start building? Let me know in the comments. And don't forget to like and subscribe for more strategies to build your financial freedom.